Games are overwhelming with all their characters, and finding out which one fits you best can be really hard. Lady Geist is my current main in Deadlock, and she got a few nice buffs this patch, so I wanted to make a video covering her for anyone that was interested in trying her out and are looking for a new main. I'll be covering her lore, general playstyle, skills, and items. Lady Geist's whole identity revolves around sacrificing her own health to use her abilities, then drains all that health right back. If you're anything like me, character personality and aesthetics are big factors in why I choose a main. Lady Geist is an old rich French socialite who made a deal with an evil spirit, Oathkeeper, for eternal youth. All she has to do is drain the essence out of living to sustain herself. So she's basically a lich. Lady Geist is brutal, ruthless, and will do almost anything to get what she wants. Oathkeeper is bound at her right hand and is used for all of her magical skills and life draining animations. Also, it's pretty cool that Oathkeeper is voiced by Matthew Mercer. Geist uses a revolver for her primary weapon. Her aim relies way less on tracking compared to other heroes in Deadlock, and is more about getting those juicy headshots. This will make Deagle and Sheriff enjoyers from CS and Valorant really happy. And if you're an Apex player, it has a similar feeling to the Wingman, and Cassidy players from Overwatch will also feel very much at home. Overall, Geist is a low mobility character that relies heavily on her weapon through the early game. Your abilities cost a lot of health, and Geist has one of the lowest base health regenerations in the game. Until you're able to purchase enough lifesteal, your abilities, outside of your life drain, can put you on a health level where you can get rushed down by your opponent. Luckily, your gun makes it really easy for you to use cover and win trades due to high damage per bullet. Just make sure you can land your headshots. As the game progresses, Lady Geist becomes an incredibly durable hero, while offering a lot of control with AoE slows, wave clear, and poke. Although she's not as fast at split pushing as someone like Wraith or McGinnis, Geist is a scary duelist due to her ultimate that lets her swap HP with her opponent. Even if you gank a Geist, she can often turn the tables against multiple opponents unless you can lock her down and finish her off while she's crowd controlled due to her ult. So let's give you a brief overview of her skills. Essence Bomb. Geist sacrifices some health to lob a bomb that sticks to the first surface or hero it comes in contact with. Then it detonates after a short time to do damage. Early game, this ability is pretty decent for poke, but can be risky since it costs a lot of health. Later on, this ability is amazing for farming once it's maxed out. Life Drain. Lady Geist tethers to a target, dealing damage over time to the target and healing you for the same amount. This is basically Pugna's Life Drain from Dota, or Fiddlesticks Bountiful Harvest if you play League. Life Drain has a long cooldown and low range, so it's not going to be particularly useful in most matchups during the laning phase, but in the late game, it becomes one of her best abilities once you max it out, because it gains access to silence. Malice. Lady Geist throws some blood shards in the target direction, dealing damage and applying a stacking slow and damage amplification debuff. This ability costs a ton of health to spam, so it's hard to use early game, but it becomes your best ability once you get to late game and have enough spirit lifesteal. Soul Exchange. Lady Geist swaps health values with the target. If you like being the king of 1v1s, then you'll enjoy playing Lady Geist, because Soul Exchange makes her an incredibly difficult to deal with duelist. It has a low range, but it's not a problem once you buy a little bit of a mobility. So that's all of Lady Geist's skills. Let's move on to items. Lady Geist has a lot of variety in which she can build, but there are a few things that feel really nice on her. Berserker, Warpstone, and Leech. Berserker is really nice on her because Lady Geist's abilities damage herself, so she can stack the buff from Berserker really easily. Warpstone gives Lady Geist much needed mobility, while also giving her some survivability with the bullet resist. And Leech gives Lady Geist the amount of spirit and bullet lifesteal that she needs to sustain herself and actually keep using her skills. Overall, she has a lot of synergy with these three items, but there's a variety of things that really work on this character, so try out and see what works best for you. Now, I could go on all day about builds for Lady Geist, but I'll have to save that for a different video, with a more detailed breakdown for the character. For now, I'll just give you an example of a generic build that you can use in your games. In the early game, I tend to be a little bit more defensive, and I focus on farming up, so I like to purchase regen with stuff like Restorative Shot and extra regen, and even Sprint Boots giving health regen. After I can farm up, I like purchasing really effective 1250 items on Lady Geist, especially weapon items, because I focus more on gun damage early game. Stuff like Berserker, Kinetic Dash, Mystic Shot, and Soul Shredder bullets are really good for spiking you early in fighting and being a menace in the 1v1, split push in the side lane. And because I like to split push in the side lane in the mid game, it helps me farm up to stuff like Mystic Slow and Leech, which help me be way more impactful and useful to my team in team fights. And once I get those items, I start grouping up a little bit more and actually be tanky enough so that I can actually help my team when fights roll around. And if you're not really feeling this one, the top public build for Lady Geist is also very good, so you can't really go wrong there either. Vegas is a really experienced player and makes really good builds. His Lady Geist focuses a little bit more on early lane pressure and being aggressive with stuff like Headshot Booster and High Velocity Mag. Lady Geist has really high gun damage and can be a real menace with poke, so she can be really strong early game if you play her right. And then he focuses a little bit more on being proactive in the mid game with stuff like slowing bullets, cold front, and things like that, allowing you to be way more useful to your team faster. But it can be a little bit more risky if you do mess up in those fights. If taking your time to scale up and slowly become an unstoppable, life-stealing juggernaut that commands space on the map, while also being able to 1v1 anyone that you want to, if that sounds good to you, then I just think you found your new main.